Live from the top of the beautiful towers at Merle Hay Mall, all 6 stories of it, it's Faith Works Live with host Michael Damastis.
And I'm so glad that you're joining us today on Faith Works Live. And today in studio with me is my daughter-in-law, Rachel Damastis. It's Tuesday. Tuesdays, we always talk about life and life-related issues. And I'm so glad that you're going to be a part of this discussion today. How are you doing, Rachel?
I am doing excellent.
That's fantastic. I'm excited because we got some cool stuff right now that is happening. This past weekend at our church, at Fort Des Moines Church of Christ, we unveiled something that we've been working on for quite some time, actually, and that is a video that we produced with the work of quite a few helping hands, including yours, Rachel. And we are wanting to help Agape Pregnancy Center raise about $20,000 to $25,000, which is a huge goal, to get a new ultrasound machine for their facility, because what they do with that ultrasound machine is so vital to their ministry, because the statistics that play out are that a woman who has seen an ultrasound image of her child in her womb is more likely than not to keep her child and not abort her child than she would be to just go ahead and go through with an abortion. So the ultrasound machine is just an incredible ministry tool, but also medically it's an incredible tool, to help just determine all the medical parts of a pregnancy, that there is a viable pregnancy, that there is, no health issues that are related, or that she's even pregnant. I mean, sometimes you might get a false test, and the ultrasound machine can kind of can show what needs to be shown on that. And that video, by the way, that we're talking about, it's called See Life, and that's posted right now on Faith Works Live Facebook page. So if you go to Faith Works Live Facebook page, you'll see it right at the top. And if you're watching on Facebook Live, our producer, Chris Brass, has put that in the comments too, so you can actually see it right there. And I think the link that he has shared is a place where you can download it, even in multiple formats.
That is correct. I'm working on the AVI and the MOV file, but it can be downloaded MP4.
Yes, and so our goal is actually to get this video out, not just in social media, but into churches all around Central Iowa. They'll play this video, they'll share this video, so that we can help Agape Pregnancy Center help women see life. That's the goal. That's what we want to do. And I think it is a worthy goal, and I'm excited to do that. So check it out. And not only check it out, why don't you share it on your personal Facebook page for us, because we want to help get that word out as much as we possibly can. Because what Agape Pregnancy Center does every single day is vital to not only just helping rescue babies, but helping women as well. They get truth when they go there. And speaking of, today we have on our show, joining us by phone, a wonderful woman that I got the opportunity to hear, probably a year and a half or more ago, by the name of Sue Thayer. And Sue, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Sue, you have just an incredible story that I'm excited for our listening audience to be able to hear today. Tell us a little bit about yourself, first off, and where you're from, and then we'll kind of start journeying with you through where you're at today and how you got where you're at today.
All right. Well, I live in Storm Lake. I've lived here all my life. It was the Planned Parenthood here in Storm Lake that I managed for just short of 18 years. I also managed the Lamar's, Iowa Center for about 5 of that. And 2 of those years I was on the Quality Assurance Committee, which is really the innermost governing body of Planned Parenthood. So I had a really long and deep exposure to, the abortion industry. But I have 5 kids. They keep me busy. 2 of them are adults. One just graduated from Iowa State with her master's degree. Another one is at University of Iowa getting her master's degree, and then I have 3 still at home. So keeps me really busy, and it's all good.
Wow. So tell me, how did you get involved in the organization of Planned Parenthood? How did that come to be?
Well, I started there in April of 1991, Planned Parenthood had been in Storm Lake since 1985 and had a good reputation. It was very low key. They didn't do abortions. I didn't really know much about abortion. Grew up in a secular home. The Planned Parenthood clinic here in Storm Lake was actually close to my house, and it was convenient, and they paid well. So it seemed like a natural fit. And I applied for the job, got it. Within a short time, the manager left. She was on maternity leave and never came back. And so I applied for the manager's job and got that as well, and then stayed there through December of 2008.
Okay, so from 1985 to 2008.
That's when they opened.
Oh, okay.
No,
I'm sorry.
I started in April of 91.
91 to 2008. Yeah. So that's still a very long haul that you were with them as an organization.
Yeah.
Now, at the time when you came on, I mean, did you have any personal convictions about this? I mean, were you a Christian at the time? I mean, was this just something like, no, this is just a job, it's not a thing, I don't even think about it? Tell me about that.
Well, I really, it sounds kind of crazy, but I really wasn't even aware of, like, Roe v. Wade. I mean, I kind of remember when that passed. I was, like, in middle school, or, and I didn't really know anybody that had had an abortion. It didn't really register with me. And I remember during the interview, the regional director saying, what do you think about our surgical services? And I said, what surgical services? And she said, well, we do surgical abortions in Des Moines. And I said, oh, well, isn't there like a little heartbeat? And because I'd had 2 kids by this time. And she said, well, it's not really murder until the fetus is viable. And I just kind of sat there like, I think we're going to have to disagree on that one, because I'm pretty sure it's murder if there's a heartbeat.
Wow. And so you were, I mean, you're the manager of a Planned Parenthood at this time, right?
Well, I think that interview, I was applying for the manager's job, or maybe it was my very first interview, but, I specifically remember the question. And when I answered it kind of in disagreement with her, I thought, probably not going to get hired here, but they must not have, I kind of joke about it, they must not have had any other applicants, because typically they would not hire someone that had any qualms about abortion. That's really a litmus test for working at Planned Parenthood, especially now. You have to be very strongly pro-abortion to even get in the door.
Wow.
So I would not be hired now.
And you believed, as I think a lot of people who work for Planned Parenthood believe, is that that they're there to reduce the number of abortions, that they're here to serve women, to help women with health care. Is that right?
Well, I really felt like, working there was a good thing. They pap smears and breast exams, and, within a short time, though, as a manager, you go to, well, at that time it was Des Moines, to watch, a day of surgical abortions. And, of course, that's a very difficult experience, one that I was not at all prepared for. And I've had people say, why didn't you just quit then? Sometimes critics will say, well, if you don't like abortion, you should have quit after you, saw it. And I said, well, it really just committed me further to the family planning part of Planned Parenthood. And I did, sexuality education programs all across Northwest Iowa. Many, many schools would invite me in, and, I'd talk to them about how to use birth control, sexually transmitted infections, all of those things. And in retrospect, they really hired me because I am a people person. I was well connected in this area because I've lived here all my life, and it was my job as the sex ed teacher to get, teens and young people to trust me, so that when they became sexually active, if they weren't already, they would feel comfortable coming, to me at Planned Parenthood.
So this is a very intentional action on Planned Parenthood's part to be in school at an earlier level. Hey, we're educating you on this. Now you know who I am. And when there's a time for you to need a guy or a gal like me, this is how you find me. So that's a full circle approach. And it's kind of, honestly, I'd hate to use these terms, but this sounds so insidious, to be frank with you.
Well, it is, we would always, in every program we did, no matter the topic, we made it clear that you are welcome at Planned Parenthood. We've seen it all. We've heard it all. There's no question that's dumb. We're not going to tell your parents. You can park in the back.
Wow.
Even if your mom calls, we're not going to confirm or deny that you've ever been there, and really tried to make them feel comfortable, knowing that they could call anytime and, somebody would answer their questions and, we could get them in, to be seen. So
now, as a mom,
the whole model of Planned Parenthood is really to separate teens from their parents.
Wow.
Like, we know better than your parents, come to us, and sometimes parents don't like to know that their teens are exploring, sexual issues, but come to us and we can help you. We'll help keep you safe, kind of thing.
So, as a mom, did that give you any pause at all at the time? Because you had kids and maybe your kids were a lot younger at the time, I guess, but did it impact you from that perspective at all, or did you question it at all, that approach?
In the beginning, no, not really. But I've tried to explain it like the frog that's in a pot of water. It's cold, but then it slowly heats up, and
right.
The frog doesn't know that it's cooking. I was kind of like that. But during the later years there, my oldest two daughters were in high school, and of course I was, the condom lady, they called me.
Wow.
For their friends. And it's something I'm definitely not proud of, and it's something that's really, had a cost with it. We've had to come to terms with that, and I've apologized to my kids, and, they see what I do now. But I hate that I ever did that. But, when you start at Planned Parenthood, they have very creative ways of training staff. And their ultimate goal really is to help you believe that working in the abortion industry is noble. And they'll have different clergy from, I hate to even say churches, but, you know what I mean, different groups write and say...
I'm a pastor, Sue, and when I hear stuff like this, I want to throat punch anybody.
No, it's not like that, but... they would find different pastors in Des Moines and stuff to, to write and make us feel good about the work we did there. And I would actually frame those and hang them on the wall and say, see, look, we're doing good things here.
Listen, if you're listening today, we're talking with Sue Thayer. She's from Storm Lake, and she was the director of Planned Parenthood in that area. And we're going to hear more from her when we come back from break.
You're listening to 99.3 FM The Truth, where we don't just rock the gospel, we talk the gospel. But don't just sit there listening. Come join us. Text or call at 515-727-KTIA.
And I'm Michael Damastis. I'm the host of FaithWorks Live. And today we have, joining us on the phone with my daughter-in-law, Rachel Damastis, we have Sue Thayer, who has been telling us her story.
So Sue, as she mentioned in the first part of the show, for 17 years she had worked at a couple different Planned Parenthoods here in Iowa, even working as the center manager, quitting in December of 2008. So Sue, what were the events that led up to you deciding to leave your position? You had said that you had come to Des Moines for some training and you had to watch these surgical abortions. What was the turning point for you?
Well, it was really kind of a process. One of the things along the way, certainly in 2002, there was a deceased infant found in the recycling center here in Storm Lake, and law enforcement sought records from different medical providers, and Planned Parenthood, of course, wouldn't turn over any records. And I understood why they didn't, but I also watched as they really used that to jumpstart this huge fundraising thing about protecting women's privacy, and they were dishonest about how many women's records were going to be affected, by the subpoena from the FBI. And it's a long story, but that was really the first time where I looked at my boss, Jill June, and I was like, why are you saying thousands of women's records? when Storm Lake doesn't even have thousands of patients. You know, so that was kind of the first thing. And then, you know, fast forward, 3 or 4 years, and my personal life was in a mess, and somehow I discovered Christian radio as I was flipping through the dials, and ended up taking a radio into Planned Parenthood and listening to the gospel and hearing them talk about abortion. And sometimes I'd flip it off thinking, well, they don't understand how important it is to a woman, you know, and then other times I would be in tears. And
so was this just question, but was this just Christian music station, or was this a Christian talk radio station?
It's both. It's
Wow.
Kinship Christian Radio out of Eagle Grove, KJYL, and we're just on the fringe of it. So I had to have this special radio with a freakishly large antenna and all these all these things to be able to get it. But I believe that God put that in my life.
There is no doubt in my mind. And here we are on Christian Talk Radio, full circle. You're helping, encouraging other people. That is such a powerful thing. And I just want to pause on that for a moment, that you were impacted deeply by Christian radio. And I hope the listening audience is hearing that and the power of what we do here at 99.3 The Truth, because literally not just your life, but hundreds of lives are impacted as a result. So that's an incredible thing that we shouldn't pass over too lightly. But continue,
that's
tell
right.
us. So you're listening to Christian radio. You're hearing them talk about abortion when you're in Planned Parenthood. That is, the irony is in just thick.
Yeah, indeed. And, you know, we'd be in the car, and my kids were used to listening to secular music, and so I had to kind of try to transition slowly, you know, over to Christian radio. But it was during this time that Planned Parenthood made the announcement that they were going to start doing webcam abortion.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, if you're not familiar with that, it's a chemical or a medication abortion. So a woman takes pills to kill her baby and then pills to dispel the deceased fetus. And they've been doing that, but to do it via like a Skype connection kind of brought it to a whole new level. And it was their plan to have all the rural centers in Iowa, 17 centers across Iowa, Spencer, Storm Lake, Creston, Red Oak, Newton, Knoxville, all be doing these webcam abortions. And I knew that was a really bad idea.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So that was going on, and I was listening to the plans for that, and I'm thinking, living in a small town and doing these abortions with no doctor there. And they made it clear, upper management, you know, said they would not be notifying any doctors or hospitals in the communities where these were going to be done.
Now,
so if it's just, you know, the middle of the night and a woman is hemorrhaging,
right,
she's supposed to go to her ER, and the doctors are not even going to know, you know, what's going on. And then my boss said, you know, at this point, it's really no different than a miscarriage. So we're probably just going to be telling women, you know, not to mention that they've taken the 2 meds to do the abortion. And I thought,
and how
man.
dangerous is that if they start putting them on medication that might have a potential reaction with the medicine that they already have in their system? And that is just that is so irresponsible. It's so wrong. I mean, everything about that is just heartsick.
Sue, describe the extensive training that you had while this was going to be happening at your clinic. I say that sarcastically.
Of sheer terror for me. I mean, I remember sitting in this manager's meeting, and they were talking about abortions, and typically I would kind of zone out when they were doing that because we didn't do abortions in Storm Lake. Right. And suddenly I snapped to consciousness when they said, and every center will be doing this new type of abortion. And, you know, it was unconscionable to me that they were going to expect these little rural towns to do this. But then on top of it, non-medical staff like myself or the staff that I hired, you know, entry-level staff that answered the phone and stuff, were going to go to Sioux City for a day of training in order to do transvaginal ultrasound. Now, that's an invasive procedure, and, you know, I kind of say tongue-in-cheek, you know, guys, if you think about having a prostate exam done by the receptionist that scheduled your appointment, this is the same thing. And, you know...
Oh, my goodness.
I'm sorry to be graphic, but it's tough to talk about this without having some little, like, cringiness, you know, whatever. But I knew that was a bad idea, and I said to my boss, you know, numerous times, but seriously, you can't expect me or any of us to be doing these. And he said, Sue, if you are breathing, you can do this. It helps if you've run a video game because it's a lot like running a joystick.
Oh,
and
goodness.
That was the point, really, where I knew I wasn't going to be there much longer. And my little radio that I had in Planned Parenthood, I kept thinking, what am I going to do? Who am I going to tell? Who's going to care about this? And I was asking, are these even legal? And they said, our I's are dotted, our T's are crossed, nothing will stop us. They wanted us to not say anything to anybody until they'd established a standard of care of 500 to 1,000 of them. And so I came home from that meeting in Des Moines thinking, I'm not going to be working there much longer. I had great benefits, great pay, but my heart was troubled. And there's no amount of money that's worth that, of course. But
absolutely.
I heard on Christian radio an interview with Iowa Right to Life, and it was like a light bulb kind of went off, and I was like, that's who I need to call, because they're going to probably care that they're doing these. And so I called Iowa Right to Life and told them, what was going on, and ended up sharing a lot of information with them about webcam abortion, about all these different things that happen at Planned Parenthood that nobody really knew about. And
wow.
When they were revving up to do the webcam abortions, of course, we had Warren Buffett that purchased 17 little state-of-the-art, 4D ultrasound machines and give them to each center. He paid for the computers and fiber optics. And, so they were up and running with no overhead.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking with Sue Thayer. And when we come back from the break, we're going to continue hearing just the deceptive practices of Planned Parenthood. And if you're not aware of this, you need to know they have a hard time with the truth. And Sue knows that firsthand. We'll come back in just a moment. Call in, text in, 515-727-5842.
It's Mikey. He's better than TV. We're listening to Mikey, and best of all, it's free.
That was my mother-in-law, Linda Curry, who writes the best jingles in the Midwest. And she's actually here visiting with us. Countdown T-minus 24 hours before she heads home. But it's been a wonderful, glorious visit with my mother-in-law, as it always is. Because who wouldn't want their mother-in-law staying with them for a while? It's just lovely. So we are talking today with Sue Thayer, and she has been sharing her story about her career, her working with Planned Parenthood for almost the better part of a decade, but almost 2 decades, 17 years that she was with Planned Parenthood, and she was the manager of Planned Parenthood. She started to really have gigantic internal struggles with what was happening with what she considered to be deceptiveness that was taking place, outright falsehoods that she saw. And Sue, I'd like you to expand upon that and tell us a little bit more about the things that you were seeing, the things that were really not setting well in your spirit.
Well, of course, the records case was a big one, and the money that poured in from that, and the deception that they put out. But then the webcam abortion thing was really big, and when I finally shared that with Iowa Right to Life, I could tell really that even for Planned Parenthood, they had kind of crossed a line. And, the abortion industry, of course, is very bold, obviously, and Planned Parenthood of Greater Iowa really wants to be on the front lines. And so the thought of doing these webcam abortions was really appealing to them because it was their plan to market the protocol to every family planning center in the country, really thereby creating an abortion facility basically on every street corner.
And I appreciate you sharing, by the way, that people like Warren Buffett, people might not know this. They know, well, that's that rich guy out in Omaha, but they might not know that he's the guy that really is helping make sure that kind of stuff is taking place. He was financing this.
Mm-hmm. We were told that he would finance as many as they could set up. And the idea for doing these came when our CEO was watching a crime scene show and realized that, maybe we could do abortions that way, because they typically had trouble finding people that would travel, to Sioux City, Council Bluffs, Ames, Des Moines, all across the state. And so this was the way that one doctor could really provide abortion services to the entire state.
It's one thing, as a pastor, I look at leveraging technology for the glory of God, but, there's also those who are looking at leveraging technology for wicked things, and this would definitely be in that category in my book, doing something to make it easier, to make it more, I don't know, it's a horrible thing. In 2014, Sue, I went with Governor Mike Huckabee and a number of other pastors, and he took us on a tour through Europe, really, and we went to Poland and we went to Auschwitz. And walking the grounds of Auschwitz, it's the only way I can kind of describe it is to tell you it was a horrible sacred mix that you feel inside of your heart. Mm-hmm. And when I was there, we walked inside of one of the existing gas chambers, and then we walked out. Not, 1.5 million Jews did not get to do that, but we did, and it was sobering. Now, the entire time that I was there, the one place they took us to, and you said you saw something similar like this, they took us to all these rooms where they had like a room filled with shoes, and filled with hairbrushes and toothbrushes, and we came into another room where there was human hair, and it was the size of about a gymnasium, just filled literally with human hair that they shaved off of the heads of the Jews, and that was the room where it literally buckled me to my knees. It was overwhelming to me what I was witnessing, and then realizing that the smoke is still coming from. They had smokestacks there when they would gas the Jews and then burn their bodies. That is still happening here in Planned Parenthoods all across our country. And it broke me, and it gave me this strong desire to do everything within my power to make it stop. And I don't know, do you feel that same sense of urgency as I do as a pastor about this issue? Because I know that God has moved you completely, like in a 180 to a different place.
Well, it's a heavy burden on my heart like I've never experienced before, and that's what drives me to continue to tell the truth. But, I guess my Auschwitz moment would be, in the Planned Parenthood facility in those first years when I would volunteer to work in the abortion unit. And I remember piecing those little babies back together in the little bowls, and looking at that, and in those early years, the first 10 years or so that I worked there, they would do that, and then they had a square sink with like a flusher, and like a toilet, and they would just put it in there and just hit the plunger thing, and down it would go. And I remember standing there thinking all those little body parts are in the Des Moines sewer system, and that still to this day it's hard to comprehend, what that's like. But in later years, they would put them in a little red plastic bag and toss them in the freezer, and then said the hazmat guy would come and pick them up because they were considered hazardous material. Mm-hmm. So, yep, I do understand that feeling of, like, have I done enough today? What else do I need to do? Who else can I talk to? Who will listen?
Right, right.
Because it's 1.5 million babies a year die here, know, and as awful as the Holocaust was, we have it repeated over and over and over again here.
Every year. And then what's the staggering reality for me, like I said, is that Auschwitz, its entire existence, was 1.5 million Jews. This is what we're doing in America every single year after year after year. And at some point you have to say, when will this stop? And I have other pastor friends of mine that get frustrated, say, man, you talk about this, you focus on this all the time, there's other things to focus on, and I just feel like somebody's got to stand up, somebody's got to wave a flag, somebody's got to be that guy that just says, I'm not going to let this go away. It's happening right here under our watch. Francis Schaeffer said that the abortion clinics across America are open at the permission of the local church. And
absolutely. Yep. People are afraid to step out. I mean, we ended up having a 40 Days for Life in Storm Lake.
Tell me about that. That is an incredible thing that happened to you.
This is a whole nother different side of this, but, you know, I didn't talk about what goes on there for a couple years, and finally, you know, somebody asked me, can you tell me what happens there? And I told 4 or 5 people that were pro-life, and I saw the horror on their face about webcam abortion. They're like, where does Planned Parenthood do that? And I said, on Erie Street, where I worked all those years.
Wow.
You know, and they couldn't believe that was happening in Storm Lake, Iowa. And, of course, another bad thing about webcam is that Iowa doesn't have a waiting period for women seeking an abortion. So a woman can come in, have a urine pregnancy test, and we were instructed to say, hey, we can take care of that problem for you today, 45 minutes in and out. All you got to do is take these pills.
Oh, my goodness.
So, I mean, there's that whole side of it, too. But we ended up in Storm Lake, back to what happened, talking about what we could do to let people know. And I said, you know, there's this thing called 40 Days for Life. I don't know much about it, but I know that Planned Parenthood hates it. So I said, let me look at it a little bit. So I got online, and it was like the last day to sign up. And this 4 or 5 people and I had met one time, and I ended up, you know, putting the registration fee on my credit card, thinking, oh, Lord, you know, what am I doing now? But it's a long story. But that first morning when I went down there to pray in front of the place that I'd worked, I mean, I was literally terrified, because I'm thinking...
You knew these people. I mean...
I knew the people, and I knew the patients, and
oh my
I pulled into my usual parking spot, you know, on the street, and I was like, Lord, I think I'll just pray for my van.
Oh, wow.
You know, because I'm like, you hear me no matter where I am, right, God? And he was pretty clear. Get out and get on the sidewalk. And my youngest daughter was just, a year or 2 at the time, and she and I spent so much time down there in those 40 days, and I have to say it was the best 40 days of my life, because I just grew so close to God. I spent so much time there, and I mean, I would see women that I knew, that I had taken care of and worked with all those years, going in, and they'd take a double look and say, what are you doing? And I'd say, do you know they do abortions here now? And I mean, I saw women leave.
Wow.
So the truth really does speak for itself. You know, if we can get the word out and people understand what goes on, it makes a huge difference. But, you know, when I travel, and I'll say, how many people know what a webcam abortion is? And even like I'm preaching to the choir, there's so many that have no idea.
Absolutely. We're listening to Sue Thayer tell her story. And what an incredible warrior for God to go and stand in the place in front of the people. That's such... Wow. I'm so blown away by that, Sue, and I'm looking forward to hearing just a little bit more of your story when we come back from break.
It doesn't matter if you're in Ames, Bondurant, or Carlisle, or anywhere in between. You're listening to the Truth Network, so come join in on the conversation by texting or calling 515-727-KTIA.
Have you ever had your water heater go bad? Most of us, if you're anything like me, it just sits down in your basement. You never pay any attention to it. But I can tell you mine is very old. I checked not too long ago, and the average lifespan of a water heater is 10 years. This is a confession. Mine's going on 24. So do me a favor. Check yours out. And if it's over that 10-year threshold, you might be running on a wing and a prayer. But I have good news for you. Baldwin Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing can get you a brand new water heater installed at a fair price right now. Call Baldwin Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing today to schedule your water heater replacement. 515-371-4036. Get the peace of mind knowing that you won't have to think about a water heater again for a long time. Call Baldwin Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing today. 515-371-4036. That's 515-371-4036. I'm Mike Damastis. I'm the host of Faith Works Live, and today we have been talking with Sue Thayer on the phone, and she has shared so many incredible things and what God did in her life. And just even off air, she was describing that this is all God. God did this, not anything else. And I just think that is a very powerful thing. And Sue, I want to ask you, as we're kind of closing out our show here in just a few more minutes, tell me, what kind of encouragement can you give people about this issue, about being pro-life, and how can it be more than just a declared value, but something that really is something we live out? We live out this view.
Well, I think once you grasp just the sanctity of life, the preciousness of life, whatever it takes for you to get to that point, whether it's watching the videos, the undercover videos about Planned Parenthood, or looking at pictures of what an aborted baby looks like, or reading, any one of the wonderful pro-life books that are out, One by Love, the Jane Rose story. Some of the great videos that have been put out recently. I mean, there's some incredible things that you can watch and share with your neighbors, your church, your Bible study, But really, I mean, I think we need to not go to bed at night until we have asked God, what is there you want me to do today?
Wow.
And, I'm not trying to put guilt on anybody, but, I need to afflict the comfortable. And
that's right.
Sometimes it's easy to think, well, I'm not going to have an abortion. Yeah, it's a bad thing, but somebody else is going to take care of it. Well, we all need to step up. I mean, we have 44 years of Roe v. Wade because nobody stepped up in 1973.
That's right.
And it's just gone on and on and on. And I mean, not only does the killing continue, but we are paying them to do it.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing that we're even talking in Iowa about having a 20-week ban on killing babies. Why would we even need to talk about that? That's just common sense.
Right.
In my book. So obviously we have a lot of work to do, but, sometimes people will say, well, what can I do? I didn't work there. I can't tell, what goes on inside there. Well, if God can use me, he can use anybody, because we all have a part in it. We all have an important job to do. And, whatever that looks like, it might be different. But, when we started the 40 Days campaign here in Storm Lake, we'd never really done anything like that. As a community, the churches had never done anything together. And in those early couple days of having the 40 days in front of Planned Parenthood, we'd have like one group here, on the sidewalk from one church, and then we'd have another group over here, and they didn't like, do you know how those people pray, kind of thing. And so we had lots of issues, but God fixed it. And, by the end of the 40 days, we were all praying together and reading scripture. And, I mean, the miracle happened, and God closed the facility. And that's
oh,
what
my
we asked
goodness.
for.
So the facility
the
that you
Center
worked
closed.
at, it closed.
Yep. Within 2 or 3 months after we finished praying. And, of course, I was just dumbfounded because Planned Parenthood, while I was still there, had signed a 15-year lease.
Oh, wow.
And so I knew that their lease ran through 2022, something like that. And I thought, they are not going to close. There's no way. And they make a ton of money, and they're doing abortions, and, God closed it. And so that made, I think, more people take notice, like this little town in Iowa, this crazy person that used to work there, now on the sidewalk in front, which apparently had never happened before. And then on top of it, the center closed. So I had people calling me saying, how did you do that? Because I've prayed in front of an abortion facility for 20 years, and I haven't seen any goodness come out of that. Maybe 1 or 2 people have changed their mind and not had an abortion, but I can't even be sure of that for sure. And, we have to not be weary in well-doing. And
that's right.
Really, I think as Christians, it's our job to do what God calls us to do, and then we have to leave the results to Him.
That's right.
And, He's a good God. And just like, Rachel, you're raising money for an ultrasound for your pregnancy center, God is going to provide, because if He, if it's His will, He will make a way. And of course, Planned Parenthood got their ultrasound machines in a not godly way. But our God is so much bigger, and it's just amazing to see what He can do and how He can use people. And sometimes I want to mention that the people that work at Planned Parenthood are not the enemy.
Right.
Because
That's the truth.
It's easy to think they're terrible and they're murdering babies and they're heartless and, that you get calloused, your heart gets hard, and you put blinders on to get through the day because what you do is so heinous.
I had to go today, just to speak on what you're saying, I had to go today right over to Harbor Freight Tools on Army Post Road, which is, my church is right down the road from Planned Parenthood, and Harbor Freight Tools is the business neighbor of Planned Parenthood right there on Army Post Road. And so as I was going in, I saw a gal coming out of Planned Parenthood, and in my heart, I said, God, please help her, please change her heart, please let her find the truth, please have a Christian speak into her life, and I prayed for her as I was walking in, and I think that we might minimize something like that, but I believe there's a lot of power in prayer, and like you say, even if you're not seeing the results, it's important to not stop, keep praying.
So go down and pray in front of the abortion facility. I mean, like I said earlier, he hears us no matter where we pray, but when you're on the sidewalk in front of the Rosenfield Clinic down there on Army Post, you are blessing not only yourself, but the people driving by, the people going in, the people coming out, the workers. I mean, it's a no-brainer that you need to be out on the sidewalk. And it's, like I said, it's scary at first, but it is an incredible experience. And the more you do it, the more you feel the need to be there because you know in your heart that you're making a difference.
Absolutely.
With the closing of the Planned Parenthood in your hometown, you started something. You opened up a different organization. You founded that organization. Do you want to speak to that?
Well, after Planned Parenthood closed, I was like, well, now I'm going to have to drive to Sioux City to pray at the nearest abortion facility. I was thinking that's the one bad thing about it is we don't, have one right here in town anymore. But I started speaking a little bit more and sharing the story of what God has done. But there was still this little nagging thing about, Sue, there's a lot of women that came into Planned Parenthood and they said, I don't really want to get an abortion, but where am I going to go for help? And there was no place in Storm Lake that had diapers and car seats. And, I remember feeling somewhat smug when we would have protesters outside. I'd think, well, are you guys going to take a pregnant woman into your home if she needs a place to stay?
Wow.
That was how I would look at it. And
to answer that question directly, yes, I would.
Well, there are some, but we have a lot more now. But we ended up starting, a pregnancy resource center and have learned so much about just God's goodness and the ministry. And we've had a couple moms choose life for their baby. We had our very first adoption ever. And we've got our new ultrasound machine. We're going to have training on that in June. And we're just really excited about the great things that God is doing. And
that's Cornerstone for Life Pregnancy Resource Center in Storm Lake, Iowa, correct?
Yep.
And you founded that.
Wow.
And it's a ministry before it's a medical center. I mean, our goal really is to save babies, but save mamas as well by, telling them about Jesus.
Definitely.
And we mentor women through pregnancy and beyond if they want us to. And it is really coming full circle for me. And instead of seeing women that have chosen abortion, now I get to work with women that are choosing life.
Well, Sue, I got to tell you, you are my hero. And you have blown me away, and I know that you have blessed our listening audience today. What a powerful story, and what an amazing testimony that you have, and so many great things God is doing in you and through you, and our blessings and prayers are with you. And thank you, Faith Works Live audience, for listening today. See you tomorrow.